Hello, everybody. I'm back. I did disappear for a brief time there. I got kicked out of the session, so I'm back. And I can see from the numbers that not everybody has come back into the session, but I see that a lot of you are joining us now. So we are ready to kick off with Lloyd. He's with us. So welcome, Lloyd.
Hi.
I am going to let you fire away. I did do an introduction for you before we left the last session, but if you just like to give a quick introduction about yourself, and then you take it away for us. Thank you.
Sure. Hi. So I'm having technical issues at the moment. My presentation is not starting on my computer and it's heavily animated. So I'm trying desperately to do this now. I think it's going to work. I'm Lloyd KEAYS. I work for SAP and I'm specialized in procurement more than anything, but I am also right now on a research group for blockchain. And I would like to discuss to you this topic. I should be okay in 1 second because it finally starts to work on my side, and it does. So I'm just gonna share screen and entire screen. If share screen. If someone would be so kind to let me confirm that you are seeing the slide. Can someone from the organization confirm that they are seeing my slide verbally?
Yes, we can see the slide, Lloyd.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. So sorry about this, everybody. Sorry, it got me stressed a little bit, but let's jump into it, yes? With a non-corporate presentation. You're going to see something, it's in another format, let's say. And it starts with a story. When I was a teenager, about 30 years ago, I cheated. I saw a movie which was called The Never-Ending Story. And I was really, really fascinated by this, and I found out there was a book. It was written by a German man, and the unenglische Geschichte. It's in German, but I read it in French because I'm French-Canadian. And it's a wonderful story. Anybody that has kids, I invite you to note this down and give it to them. It's very, very nice. But why am I speaking about this today, about blockchain? Lloyd is weird. Well, because in this story, I think there is a nice analogy. There is at some point in the story an ivory tower, and then there is a little grain of sand. And this grain of sand is kind of magical because it can become 2 grains of sand and 10 grains of sand, and it can create an entire new world. And I think that's a nice analogy. First of all, this ivory tower that comes out of nowhere and these grains of sands that are multiplying, it looks a little bit like blockchain, and you're going to see me reuse this analogy. But before even that, I'm going to give you a tip that should help you. When it talks about blockchain, it seems very technical. It's a lot of jargon, and it's a scary world in some kind of a way, especially when you come from business, because you have a lot of geeks that know all about it, and you're there, and it's 2 worlds. So my tip is replace the word blockchain with trust. Whenever you read something online or someone talks about it, just in your mind, replace the word blockchain when they use it with the word trust. And it's going to start making sense. You're going to see me doing this today very much. And my goal today for this presentation is, of course, to discuss what is happening in blockchain in the corporate world, in supply chain and in finance mainly. But first and foremost, I would like to try to get you to have a good understanding of what it is, blockchain, and what are the applications that are very popular on them, and just bring you to that level of knowledge, and then so you can grasp a little bit what might be happening in the corporate world. So we're going to start here with how things work in the normal world, right? So if you have rands in your pocket and you want to send those, let's say overseas, to make it a bit complicated, well, you're going to just contact your bank and create what is called a wire, an international wire, to send this money around to the recipient. When you think about this, the bank in the middle acts as a provider of trust. Because, when your bank account, it's a database somewhere. It's an Excel spreadsheet on steroids, right? It's a database. And on the other side, it's also a database. So the fact that two databases talks to each other, why does this work? It's because we believe that banks have the trust to make those numbers real currency. They have real world value. And we use them for that trust in the middle. They are also very much regulated by governments to make sure that this trust is also has a stick in the story. But ultimately, when you use a bank, it has a cost. So you are getting charged to do that transaction. They want to make money. And it's slow. A wire takes 3 days, sometimes 4 days, depending on complexity of where you send it. It can take a week before that money actually comes to the other side. So that's my model number one of three. I'm going to have three. One in the banking. The next one is in the world of organic products. So you're a farmer now, this time in South Africa, and you make organic products because you make more money with it. Well, and you believe in the environment. You think it's for a good cause. There is a problem, though. Your neighbor uses a ton of chemicals, and his tomatoes and your tomatoes, they look the same. But yours are organic. So you use the principle of a certifying agency that will come and analyze a little bit your practice and give you a stamp of approval that it is organic indeed. You have an organization in South Africa, the South African Organic Sector Organization, and this organization has a standard and it has certifying agency that works on their behalf to provide that seal that it is indeed organic. Now, a little problem comes when, let's say that I am in Holland right now, that's where I live. I am importing those vegetables from South Africa to produce soup. We have a big company that makes nice soups that are organic soups. So the vegetables goes to Dubai. There are groups with other from Egypt, from Kenya, from other sources, all organic, but they all have a different stamp. And maybe there is some kind of a global unified standard for organic products, but there is many one of them. Nevertheless, I get all this in my factory to make my soup. And at some point, I'm going to put my own Dutch stamp of organic on that soup and then give it to the consumer. The consumer has no way to be sure that nobody cheated. And it's very difficult even for the soup maker to actually find out all the different stamps and seals of approval. It's very disparate. And so it's difficult. So that's my case number two. Nevertheless, here in that case, there was also a piece of trust. That certification agency, that's their role, to provide at least a form of trust within South Africa that those products are organic. They've done the audit. They take the responsibility of their word. They provide the trust that the seal is valid. And it's impossible to audit. So my next example, my third one, consumer goods. And I built this slide last week, and I have to pay the price now because I'm receiving a lot of spam emails. But it goes like this. Wish is a huge e-commerce platform. Maybe some of you already know it. It's a front end to Alibaba, which is the largest consumer platform in the world. It's in China. And when you go onto Wish, it has options. You see them in a bit on the right: Facebook, Google, Apple. Oh, that's handy. I can use my Facebook profile. And then I have a warning. So Mr. Zuckerberg is telling me that Wish, this company, is requesting your name, your profile picture, and your email address. My profile picture. Why does this e-commerce website has to deal with my picture? That's weird. And then I am not a conspiracy theorist, but nevertheless, I'm making the link that there is a lot of facial recognition happening in China. And this is an e-commerce owned by half of the government of the state of China. And I am about to provide them my picture to be able to do some shopping. Okay, if I go quickly, I don't notice, I will do it. And then I can order glow-in-the-dark plastic because it's cool. It's glow in the dark. But nevertheless, here, what is happening is that Facebook provided trust as well, but not to me, the consumer. They provided trust to Wish, to the B2B platform, to the the commerce platform, to say that I am a known person. And so the largest social network on earth is providing its data about me to the largest e-commerce platform online, including my picture, and for me, for the conveniency of being able to buy glow-in-the-dark plastic. Now, the challenge here, I am not saying if it's good or bad or if it's risky or not. That's not my conversation. My conversation is just to realize that we are concentrating power to Facebook. And the same here would be to Google or to Apple, the other options. We are basically delegating our rights of identity to those companies for conveniency. And they can do a lot of things. And when you have a data leak, there was a huge one in the United States about T-Mobile not long ago, and they kept hiding it. And it's still, people are still saying, can you just come clean about it? So that's going to be my third case. We're going to come to those three cases later and look at blockchain instead of having those in the middle to provide the trust. So this new trust in town, here's my ivory tower from my never-ending story. So it's cool because it's an eternal ledger owned by no one, available to all, immutable, and working with, and even fingerprints. So ledger is just a logbook. It's a book where you put entries one after the others. Just like when you go to in the old times, when you go to a hotel, they write down who's been in the rooms, and that's it. So that trust is provided this way. That's interesting. We're going to have to look into this, how that works. When I say available to all, it's because nobody actually owns the platform. It's like the internet. It's a service that is available to everybody. Everybody can use it and write on it, and it's immutable. And that means that you can't change it. Once you've written in that logbook, it's like for the kids, when they did something wrong, Santa Claus knows. It's the same principle. It's there forever. And it works with fingerprints. That's interesting. Well, we're going to look into those fingerprints in a second. But here is one keyword on blockchain. It is not a database. If anybody says it's a database, they are wrong. This is not a principle of a database. It's a principle of a log of traces, of fingerprints. Interesting. Where does that go? Well, blockchain itself has different flavors. This one here is called Bitcoin. There is another one called Hyperledger, and this one is private. It's owned by a company, which defeats a little bit the purpose. But anyway, it's owned by a company. There is a hybrid, which is half public and half private. It's a strange thing. And there is a consortium one, which is called Energy Web Foundation, from different energy companies that are together. It's a private one, but it's a consortium. And there is other public ones, Ethereum. This is going to be the one I'm going to talk the most about because it has a lot of functionalities possible built into it. But ultimately, they do the same thing. They are a provider of trust. And the difference is between the public one, the Bitcoin, Ethereum, is because nobody owns them and everybody can join them. It's decentralized. It's completely like the internet, meaning that nobody can have power over who uses it. The other one, when they are either controlled by companies or consortium, someone can come in and erase some stuff. So you lose a little bit the trust principle in here. So, of course, there is other ones, right? I'm not going to talk about all of them, but because it's a kind of a very easy technical thing, you'll have to believe me on that one. You can deploy different ones as you want, and it just depends if you're a popular person or not. It will work or not, because you have to have users. But here, I'm going to give you a little warning, and that's when the tips for presentations is they say that when you use jargon in a presentation, your audience loses about 10 points of IQ for 10 minutes because people are just thinking of what does that mean. So I hope I'm not doing this right now, and you're in a safe space. I'm not going to ask you to talk, so you can just please bear with me, but we're going to use terminology. My example about the bank has an equivalent in a blockchain, which is called cryptocurrency. My example of the certification of organic products has also an equivalent, and it's called tokenization. And the last one, which is the Facebook example to log in or your identity, and this one is a nice one. It's called self-sovereign identity, right? So own your own data, your own identity. Self-sovereign, I'm not English mother tongue, so sovereign is an interesting word. I always spell it wrong. 3 terms of jargon, and we're going to go through this in this presentation. All of those running on blockchain. That's interesting. So they are not blockchain. No, they run on blockchain. And now to do this, we're going to stop a presentation, and we're going to go onto the web, and I'm going to show you something very ugly and geeky, but I'm going to show you blockchain, literally what it is. And hopefully this will work. I had technical issue this morning. Wow, what am I talking? What am I showing you here? So blockchain needs people that will actually participate. The more people, the more bigger, the more trustworthy it becomes. I am now here, Satoshi, in this demo. That's me. That's my computer. And I'm just going to add a couple of others that are there as well in their parts of the world. And I'm going to say they are actually, 2 of them are going to be active with my blockchain. So that means that Satoshi, Sally, and Luna are synchronizing the data, right? I'm trying not to be technical here. I'm trying to be just functional. We're going to write a blockchain about LLOYD, that's my name, LLOYD coronavirus status. Sorry, I'm going to send status. So this is starting to be interesting because look at this. I have a code here, a very ugly code. And let's all remember just the last 3 letters because that's easier, B89. If I change this, I change anything in the text, it changes. Every time I write this, status, it's back to B89. So the text, always any data, any text, any image or video even, anything that is uploaded here will create one of this fingerprint, but it's always the same if the data is the same, and that's the key. So if I change it, it becomes something else, but if I bring it back to what it was, it is the same code. And it's going to be universal. So, that's interesting. So I'm going to create that blockchain. That's the first block, the block 0, the Genesis block. And now we're going to start adding to this blockchain. Just note the 6 on top because something's going to happen. So in here, I'm going to say that my status is unvaccinated. And maybe that's provided by the health officials or the agency or whomever that has the authority to write that unvaccinated text here. For my demo, I'm doing it myself, but you understand that this is normally a certifying agency that would do this, that would give unvaccinated. Look above. Oh, they have 11. What's happening, and it looks geeky, so I'm not too much into doing this, but what happened is that, it's easier if I just stay here. Sally, her version, realized, hey, my number, which was 0, is not the same as the new one, which is 1. So its computer is going to do some automatic calculation and validation to make sure that it's accepted, and it's going to synchronize to the other one. It's a big book, a ledger, remember hotel book, they all copy each other. Okay, so that's interesting, but okay, well, where is it going? I'm going to make more blocks, right? So I have unvaccinated here. I will say COVID recovered. Let's say I had it. And then I had then vaccine 1. and I'm going to have vaccine 2. I made a spelling mistake on purpose. Do you see block 1, block 2, block 3, block 4? Okay, it's not difficult. I think probably everybody can follow this. But where it becomes very nice, or where you really see blockchain happening, is that here you have my original number, remember, the 869. And this 869 is noted here as the previous 9. We find it again, 869. And this number is used with this data to create a new fingerprint. This is 108C. That's the new fingerprint of block 1. And let's look at this. 100C, it's used again in here, plus this one to create a new block. And so on. It's always the same. This number is in the parent or in the previous one, and it's used with the data to create the new one. Now this is how you call, that's the chain part of blockchain. That's the chain you are seeing now. They are linked with the DNA of the parent to the next one. Okay, so trying here to keep it simple, what happens if I want to cheat? Here, instead of going, I'm trying to go into the past, block 2, and see that it was unvaccinated. There's a trouble. This number has changed, and it has broken everything afterward. Because the DNA of this one, or the fingerprint of this one, that I'm just changing here, is actually changing the code here that needs to go here, and this one is not valid anymore. So if someone wants to cheat, it's not gonna work. It actually breaks the chain. So you can prove that it's not right. And since you can't change it, there is no delete button on blockchain. It's there forever. So it's impossible to change the past. So if I come back here to COVID recovered, I hope I will write it exactly the same way. Yeah, I wrote it exactly the same way. So I'm bringing back the old data. I'm verifying. Is it this then? Yes. And then the blockchain turned green again, because the blocks with each other work together. And this is how you bring trust, because what you see here as this data, I made a mistake. That's going to be my last example. In here, you are absolutely sure that the trail behind is 100% trustworthy since the beginning, because they need each other to exist. And this is what blockchain does. Honestly, blockchain is what you're seeing now, a little bit more, but fundamentally, this is 80% of all what it is what you're seeing now. This is what blockchain is. Now, last question here. What happens with this vaccine 2? I made a mistake. I cannot delete it. The only thing I could do is correct the spelling mistake. So, no, wait a second. Yeah, vaccine. Oh, I think I wrote it in French. Sorry. Anyway, but I corrected my mistake. I put 3C and I brought 2. And so in here, it creates a new block with the corrected information, but it's still on blockchain. So it will keep the trace if you make mistakes, but you can add a latest one and it's there. Now we've created a lot of activity here. Let's look above. Wow, this became all more busy because Sally and Luna all at the same time synchronize and verify my blocks, except that when I did make my mistake here and I changed this to something else and I broke the chain, the 2 above would reject the changes. It would not be allowed. They would just let me be, so it would not affect the whole system because it is not aligned. So this is blockchain. You've seen it now. So this is really what it is. So let's go back to my presentation and look at it in business process. And this is one of my favorite painting, Norman Rockwell, American painter, but it's called a gossip. So this lady, hey, did you know that? Oh, yeah, really? How did you know this? And it goes on and on until maybe the neighbor of that lady originally says, what did you say about me? And if you've ever played telephone with the kids, you know that the message changes on the way, right? So this became a horror story at the end. But what about if blockchain had been involved here? What would that mean? Well, this blah, blah would make a fingerprint. We've just seen one, right? This is the fingerprint. So if the blah blah is the same, well, it's okay. And it's the same. And yeah, if the code, the fingerprint is the same, we know that there is no problem. And it's all perfect. And oh, suddenly someone is cheating, trying to change. And the fingerprint of, it's not blah blah, maybe she said blue blue. And the fingerprint of blue blue is not the same as blah blah. So the blockchain is actually stopping. And the result is this never happens, because that trial of mistaken or cheating is not going to go through. You need to keep it what it is. So this is an example, but now bring this even into a more corporate aspect. If instead of blah blah it was 2 kilograms of CO2 of carbon, you have made a metal part, and in the melting process and in all this, this little piece of metal has a carbon footprint of 2 kilograms of carbon. Yes, and you are in a system, you are capturing this in an Oracle ERP system, financial system, or operation system, and you're going to sell this to someone that has an SAP system, and to someone else then that goes to be sold by someone else to a Microsoft Dynamic. And then the transporter is going to move it to another warehouse, and that's an SAP company, truck company that uses this. And it goes on and on to the next ones as the business of the world is happening. Now, this is a very long tier. We call that multi-tier, when suppliers and suppliers and suppliers has many levels. That would be a little bit exaggerated, so many, but nevertheless, it could be that your little piece of metal that had a carbon footprint had to be passed on to everybody, so we know at the end that the carbon footprint is valid. So if we look now at the chain of ERP technologies that have happened in the middle, there's almost no way on earth at the moment that this can work, because everybody has different system, different coding. It's the same as when I said my tomatoes originally. It's very difficult when it moves, if it's just a piece of information somewhere in some form. It will get lost along the way, and someone can cheat in the middle, and you're never going to be able to figure out who did. So this is where you can use the trust using the blockchain platform. If you had left the fingerprint on blockchain from the beginning, and everybody is leaving the fingerprint as they go along, you can see they would be, like in my example, green. They would be the same. There is no red anywhere. So the fingerprints proves at the end that every single person in this story kept their word and nobody changed the data. And so this is how the trust is provided by the platform. And this is quite of a game changer in this industry, in the industry, or in many industries actually. So my 3 topics, cryptocurrency, tokenization, self-identity, you have to see them as applications that are actually utilizing blockchain as a trust provider or a trust protocol. So the blockchain, what you saw in my demo, is very, very basic and fundamental, but then you can build application. You're building websites, right? Websites, and maybe with database and all that stuff, that are just going to actually utilize the trust that is provided on blockchain. And so this is how those 2 things work together. So when people talk about cryptocurrency, they say Bitcoin and it's the same as blockchain. That's not true. That's an application that is making cryptocurrency, and it is using blockchain as its trust provider. And we're going to go into those examples. Now, you might ask yourself, yeah, okay, but that's interesting, but what in my real life, my company, what does that world would do? So I've searched about for an hour and a half to find startups and initiatives around blockchain on different topics. And guess what? I found a lot. So the world is bubbling quite a lot, and don't worry, we're not going to go through all those details, but from traceability to of where things comes from, to smart routes for trains, to green certification, smart maintenance, and even salary on demand. And then you have the United Nations on top that do carbon tracking, anti-money laundering, human rights violation. So if you're interested here, I'm teasing a little bit you in the audience. Well, you can always use any one of those terms and just do a search with those terms with blockchain around, and you can actually go down rabbit holes to find information. So if you find there is anything relevant in those topics to you, I invite you to go further, because I won't be able to cover all this in my hour presentation. But my message here is lots of things are happening for businesses, and they are coming around in every corner of what we do as businesses, and they are going to most likely change the world. The story that we had is becoming another story, and maybe a never-ending story again. So I said I was going to go into 3 topics, so I'm going to go more into details about those now. Remember, we are in the world of the applications of blockchain. So let's start with cryptocurrencies, which is what people knows the most. And okay, so let's look at this. How does that work? Well, a topic that is very relevant in South Africa is gold mining. So if you think about the real world, right, gold, Anglo Gold, how there is a mine, a source of gold on the ground, and they have to invest big trucks, people, time, and lots of activities to actually, get the ground up and filter it and get gold out of this ground. You need a lot of work to do this. It means that gold is rare. It's not that rare, but nevertheless, it is rare. Now, gold is also highly desirable because people love it. It's beautiful, but it has also lots of application. So that makes that gold as a value of 875 million rands per kilogram. Per kilogram. Yes, I hope I did my conversions right. The fact that the money, it has a high value, like I said, is a link of desirability and rarity, and that it comes from the work of the mining companies that do this. Now, the same thing, it's very much a one-to-one exact analogy with how cryptocurrency works. Because instead of investing a lot of machinery to grab the soil and process to get gold, you need to put a lot of computers and processing powers and a lot of money to actually calculate, it's mathematics, but calculate a Bitcoin, an example. And we've all heard about China tracking down on those server farms that are bringing the world into a supply problem with CPUs for computers, because they are using all this for Bitcoin and for cryptocurrency. But that's the principle here, is that you need a lot of work to get the calculation out of something that is highly desirable, a Bitcoin. Maybe not by everybody, but some people do find that. I mean, we had Mr. Tesla that actually thought it was interesting. Facebook is also interested in cryptocurrency, and there is a huge hype at the moment because Walmart worldwide is also getting interested in cryptocurrency. So it's highly desirable, right? And you're getting here a value of 746,000 rands for 1 Bitcoin, and that was last week's. When I did my presentation. I think I checked that on Thursday. But you do see that it's very valuable. Now, a lot of people, I've just said, says that it's not green and it's terrible because we're using lots of electricity, and it is right, but I just like to put this into context as well. So some company here, I think it was Galaxy Digital Mining, did some audits or checks, and they calculated that it's 113 terawatts of power. I don't know exactly. I'll have to believe them but they have other example. Gold mining worldwide has a carbon or electricity footprint of 240 terawatt. Oh, that's interesting. It's double. And the whole banking system with their banks and the electricity in the offices, but the databases and all the financial institution has an electricity footprint of 263 terawatts of electricity. So Bitcoin, my message is not that it's something that we shouldn't consider. It is an important topic. It should become green, and I'm agreeing with that. But we always need to relativize that, yes, that's this amount, but it's still the half of what the banks are. And the mining gold is also still very much more power hungry, electricity hungry. But okay, let's go back to cryptocurrencies. What does that mean for businesses? There is a lot of cryptocurrencies, and it seems like cowboy land. A lot of people think like, oh, people are printing billions and making things, and it's all very fishy. But there remains something here. The steps to go into this has to do with real money, and you need to go to a real bank, and that real bank you will kind of purchase with your money cryptocurrencies. Then you are in the world of crypto. You can play, invest, and risk because it's highly volatile and all that stuff. Maybe we've read the news. But once you've made some money or something and you want to bring it back to the real world, you will again have to go through a bank, and the bank will give you that money. But the part here is that banks are globally, worldwide, linked to some principle known as know your customer. Basically, they need to validate that you are a human being, that you are not a criminal organization, and they might ask question, where did that money come from? Did you pay your taxes? And the bank don't want to take the risk of highly volatile or weird stuff happening. So there is safeguards from the banking system on what is happening. That's part one. And part two is the big regulation. The World Trade Organizations are also bringing frameworks to actually regulate a little bit more of what's happening in the crypto world, because it's still a little bit too much cowboy land. Nevertheless, it's, you still have safeguards there. For businesses, the one that we see that has the most impact is the principle of stable coins. What is that? Well, a Bitcoin is equal to 48,000 USD coins. USD coin is another cryptocurrency. It's like Bitcoin. It's another one. But guess what? One USD coin is equivalent to 48,000 US dollars. It's a stable cryptocurrency. It is frozen to the value of the American dollar. It doesn't fluctuate like Bitcoin. It is completely stable. Okay, what's the point of having that? That becomes interesting. So the point of this is, if you are, let's say, a company A in France, and you have 100,000 USD coins in cryptocurrency, that has a perfect value of $100,000, you can transfer it to your subsidiary in Canada directly. It's a matter of on your phone, it's a wallet on your phone to say, I'm transferring this, and go back to the demo I gave. It will just add another stamp on blockchain. This is as simple as that. What I did with my COVID is pretty much the same thing that needs to happen here with a little bit more data, but it's the same principle. And the difference is the cost is fixed at around 23 cents. It fluctuates a little bit, but it's about that cost. That cents, So 23 cents to transfer 100,000 US dollar coin, and it takes about 10 minutes for the system and all the different people to, validate and copy each other and make sure that it's a real transaction and it works. So the blockchain will provide the proof that it is valid in about 10 minutes. If you do this in the normal banking system, go back to my wire story, you're wiring $100,000 or, from France, it would be euro, but from France to the to Canada, you will have maybe 3 to 4 days delays of the wire process to make sure that it's all equalized and perfect. So 3 to 4 days, and they might take 1%, 2%, 3% of the entire amount in fees. So you are in the maybe $150 or $200 of fees instead of 23 cents in 10 minutes. So if you present this to a company, you can legally transfer from subsidiary A to B across the world $100,000 in liquidity for the cost of 23 cents and in 10 minutes. Who wants to go to the banks? And guess what? I looked online yesterday and I found out that you have an equivalent in South Africa. It's called the XR. So the South African Rand's coin. It exists. We'll come back to that a bit, but it exists. So this is stable coin for business. We see this coming in treasury and capital management in companies. Other topics, you can just check my slide deck. I have to be wary of time. Maybe one thing, Bitcoin ranks 14 in the largest currency in the world. It's between the Swiss franc and the Russian ruble. in here. And you have a lot of innovations happening around cryptocurrencies in this world. So I said I had 3 topics. My first one was cryptocurrency. The next one is tokenization. Oh, an interesting word. Now you have to go think of when you play board games, you know, and you have those little plastic round piece. Those are tokens, right? So it's a bit the same system. So let's just go through an analogy. So on blockchain, I said you have application. You have one, we've just seen it, called Bitcoin, that writes cryptocurrency called Bitcoin, and it has this value. You can have another cryptocurrency called Ethereum, and it has the value today as one Ethereum to about 50,000 rands. So you're writing another story. You're using blockchain the way we saw it, but you're writing crypto. And maybe my last one here on crypto, you have the XR, which is the South African Rand's digital coin. So it has a value of 1 rand, right? So it's 1-to-1. But instead of writing something around crypto, you can start writing other topics. So instead of writing about money or crypto, you're writing about carbon tokens, kilograms of carbon. And you actually generate this. A certification agency will use this token, give it away to a company to prove that they've used that amount for this part. And this token can be transmitted to the next buyer or the next user, and etc., and can accumulate. You can have 10 tokens. So think you have a bar of metal, and you sell those bar of metal to a scaffolding company, and they use 20 bars of metal, so they have now 20 tokens. And the scaffolding company sells this to a big event agency that do show, and they use 200 scaffoldings. So you see how the tokens are now accumulating to show the carbon footprint at the end. Now the same thing can be done with organic token. You can organic or organic grown, organic token that says that it's 100% pesticide free. This is a certification token that you give into a box, and you can put a little code, a QR code that people can scan to see this token. Same thing we have here. I work for SAP, and they try to make us less fat. So they made an app where you can, if you start going on the treadmill, you can say, I've done half an hour on the treadmill, and I will receive fit coins that I've done this. And after a certain amount of fit coins, I can buy a beautiful pen or something like that with a logo, right? So they're using this to write 15 minutes of cardio on the coin. Another example, I'm giving you lots of them. I'm trying to show you that the whole world can turn into this, right? But this diamond, very much a good topic for South Africa. You can chemically analyze a diamond, and then it becomes unique, and you make a token. This diamond has this nanomarking, blah, blah, blah. And so in 5 years, if you can reanalyze the diamond and you find the marking or its calculation, you can verify on blockchain as trust, where was it mined? Is it mined in blood diamond areas, or is it mined by good mining in South Africa, for example, in Botswana? So maybe here towards the end of those tokens examples, but you've probably heard about the crazy artwork stories. Same idea is you take this painting, whatever, and you say it has 1 token. I'm going to make a token representing the ownership of that painting, but this token is worth 2 million, let's say XR, 2 million South African rands. So I could buy maybe 1/10 of a token, or even 1/100th of a token, 0.01 percent of this token. So you can just split them up, and I just buy a little piece of it, and I'm owner a bit of this painting. And then you are in a world where you can have tradables. People can trade and have ownership, and because they find that interesting, they find that valuable. This is how this world is working. You transfer a real artwork, and then you make its ownership linked to a token, and who owns this tokens owns the painting. And the last one is asset tokens. You could put on an asset piece that goes into a machinery. You could put a little code or something embedded so that it's really the part has a code, and this code is dropped on blockchain. So you can always come back to blockchain as a reference that it is authentic. Nobody is providing you a fake part. But also, if you sell it, you can always come back to where is that part, what is the link, who made it, etc. Maybe documentation around it. So those are different applications that you can do with tokens. And in here, I have another demo, just not to be completely on PowerPoint. And I think this one might actually having a problem. So give me a second. I said I had technical challenge early on. You're seeing all my slide. I'm spilling my beans. I need to copy this. So I had another computer and it would not let me use the camera. And now this is very mean to me. Can you imagine? I can't select it. I'm gonna go back here. I need to be patient. I'm going to go back in this one and paste this. You're going to think like, what is Lloyd showing up right now? Because it looks like South Park weird little cartoons and something like this. But it's real time. So what are we seeing here? This is the Ethereum blockchain. Remember I said you had different blockchain. This is the Ethereum one. And this is real time, real life. So this is not an animation. This is real data behind. They've just turned it into little cartoon, but you have different applications that are using the Ethereum. And guess what? The USD coin, the US dollar coin, stable coin that I talked to you about is using it. So whenever someone does a transaction, we have one here, he goes like, yay, and he's waiting. And those are transactions, they're waiting to get onto a bus. A bus is a block on blockchain. And when there is a certain amount of transaction, then the block goes onto the blockchain to get written. So that's a little bit complicated, but I just wanted to show you that this is really happening in real time. And you have a principle that if I pay a little bit more to be up the queue, I want to be in the first class. I'm the first one waiting. But if you don't pay much, you can be in the third class. And instead of 10 minutes, it might take a day. And this third class is very, 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 very long. And so this is just visualizing the data. Notice this was the US dollar coin, but we have some weird ones here. This is it this one I wanted to show? No, it was another one. I'm not sure if I remember which one. Yeah, this one is about crypto kitties and collectibles. So this is all very interesting. And if I look at the last blocks, I'm just going to go on one that maybe 2 minutes. So if I look at this block on blockchain, fingerprint, I'm going to look at this hash. It's a fingerprint and of the block and see more. Sorry, it's very geeky and I don't want to scare you. But if you look here at this block has the same kind of code we saw earlier on when I was giving you the demo, and it has a parent. And the parent is the one that was previous. And they are linked with each other the same way that I showed you earlier on. There's more data here. We don't need to go into that. But you understand the principle of blockchain, just keeping each blocks together. Okay, so let's go back here. And I hope it goes back. Yes. To continue. I have my third and last topic that I want to talk to you about. I'm just going to summarize here. We had cryptocurrencies. They were generating by using computer power to calculate some math and creating and finding out what is the calculation of a cryptocurrency, a Bitcoin, for example, an Ethereum or something like that. And because it's difficult and rare, people want to have them, they want to put them, purchase them, it makes them valuable, and this is that world. But in that world, there is a concept of stable coins, which are linked to real world currencies. And those are very interesting because of the cheap cost to transfer money or transfer cryptocurrency across the world outside the banking system. It's very fast and it's very cheap. So for a large amount of money, it's becoming the most economical way. It's almost replacing PayPal at the moment in some area. So that's part one. Part two, tokens. Well, if you can calculate bitcoins and stuff like that, well, you can also do other things. You can just capture a part number and park it on Facebook forever, the property of a diamond, an asset. You can also have things about carbon footprint or green certification. They can just be left as traces on blockchain to validate in the future that it was still the same trace. We know it, where it comes from, and there is this world. And now the last part has nothing to do with those tokens, or this is the blockchain is used for another principle, which is the identity. Now here, remember, my image is that we don't like this principle of using data, or I don't feel comfortable, let's say, that all my data is owned by Facebook. They can block me and I don't have access to other sites, and they provide my profile picture to China. It's all a bit too much power in the hands of someone. So how does that work in the real world? Well, if you yourself want to are being asked to prove some identity, well, it's easy. You take your plastic identity card, your passport, or your driver's license, and you just show it. You have it, you own it. And it will sound stupid, but nobody can say to you you're not allowed to show it to that person. You have full ownership and control over your plastic card, right? It's yours. In my model that I showed you about Facebook, the same principle goes this way. You have me, and someone is asking me, or in this context, I was Wish, but someone is asking me identity. So I went onto Facebook, which has my data, and I need to ask permission. Basically, I need to log in. Maybe it doesn't look this way, but it's still asking permission, right? And then it is transmitted to the other side that will duplicate my data. It will live in that website. It will live on Facebook as well. And if something breaks with the Facebook server, I am denied access to the other side. Basically, I am not owning any of my data anymore. I'm just letting companies own that and share it with me because I gave my permission, but it's very light and I don't know all the information. So where does this principle of self-sovereign identity comes from? It's the idea that you should own your data and it should be available to you. And the best way I can show you to this is a little demo here. I don't work for this company, right? I don't know those people. I don't actually know those people. I just thought that they had a very cool demo to explain this. So this is an app that I have on my phone. I downloaded it on my phone, and this app you don't log into anywhere. It just is on my phone. It's not linked to a database or to a server, to anything like that. It's just on my phone. So I'm just going to start my demo. It's a film here. So if on my phone I log in, there is nothing at the moment. It's an empty wallet. It's called a wallet. And you see, there is no information about me, know whom I am, nothing like that. So there is no server, there is no database, there's none of that. It's just on my phone. It's passively there. And my demo stopped. So how does that work? Well, I go to my town hall. This is a German demo. So I go to my city that provides identity, and something is mean. Yeah. And then maybe there is a process where I need to go to the counter or getting something like that. But ultimately, they give me a code that I can scan. And this is the city city Münsterhausen is trying to send me something. What is it that they want to send me? Well, they want to send me my base identification. So I accept. And what's happening now is I have a digital ID in my phone in the same manner that you have a plastic card in your wallet. I'm going to wait a little second. My film goes well. So you have this digital ID on your phone. It is, again, not linked to, it doesn't live. You don't need to log in online to a web server somewhere to do this. It is literally on your phone. So it continues. I want to have a credit card. And the bank, let's say, uses the same system. So the bank is telling me, scan this. And in here, it wants to connect to me. And this bank is going to ask me some more information. Can it just work, please? Yes. It's going to ask me some more information. it's asking me show request here. It's asking me to see my base identification. So this one is, they want to see from my phone this identification. Okay, so I press OK. And now they're going to validate. And in the background, what's happening, and now blockchain comes in the story, my identity creates a fingerprint like we saw earlier on. And my city has the same data and has also created a fingerprint of that data. And maybe I never said, but this fingerprint, you can't go backward. You can't decipher it. It's a one-way data. So they also have it. And now the credit card has this data. So they will do a 3-check. They will check my fingerprint. They will check the fingerprint from the government and the one they have. And if it's all the same on blockchain, they know that my ID is valid. That's how the trust is provided in this principle. And nobody can see what the fingerprint is. You cannot, it's like I said, it's a one-way street. You cannot decrypt it. You can't find what it was. And now I have a credit card. And my last example here, and I need to accelerate a little bit, so maybe I'll stop here because of time, but you understand how it works is now those digital assets are in my digital data on my phone. They're not on a database, and I can use them by permission. Now, this is still a little bit science fiction in the world at the moment because it's still implementing, and so it's not it's live, the technology is there, but the world needs to adopt it. This being said, and I can tell you the European Union has asked all its member states to start working in implementing those principles as forms of identity. So it is going to happen. It's just a matter of time. So how this works again here is the company, like the credit card, is asking access to my ID that was provided. I accept to send it back, and they will check the fingerprints on blockchain to make sure that this data is valid. And they don't check the data, they check the fingerprint. So nobody can listen on the line. It's extremely secure. And so the conclusions here is what is the most important things that are happening in here. So we saw the cryptocurrencies in the finance is really becoming, it's the most important one. Working capital is really the key word here. Decentralized finance. I mean, I've put salary financing here, collateralized bond. There is many things that are happening. The world of finance is really being triggered with this. And the other area in businesses is the B2B, business to business. Tokenized asset, carbon tracking, all those tokens I talked about, proof of origin, where they come from, niche, and this. And in here, the self-sovereign identity, my third topic I was talking about, is actually becoming the way to log in or to prove who you are in all those systems. So it's really becoming the way to to state I am me. And it's not because someone says it, it's I own that identity. So this is really there. And to conclude here, to tying this together, to remember what we said, what I've showed you today, those 3 topics, there are others, but those 3 topics are application that use this universal trust that is provided by blockchain. It's a very simple thing. You saw the blocks being created, but they can, because this principle exists, you can do a lot with it to use it. And this is how those 2 ties up together. And going back to my never-ending story, this little grain of sand that created a humongous universe that was the magical universe of my childhood, right, is a bit the same as blockchain. Blocks by block is creating a new way to address the principle of trust in the world. So I do believe that blockchain is going to be a never-ending story. It's not going to go away. It's just going to become more. And this is what I wanted to share with you today.
Thank you so much, Lloyd. I think that has, for many people, demystified blockchain. I see there's lots of thumbs up. Now that the bulk of them have stopped coming through, give me a show of clapping hands. I think we've got that symbol. If it's helped you understand blockchain more clearly and the benefit and value. That's fantastic, because I really do think that this blockchain is a stumbling block. We really are short of time, so I'm really going to just put 1 or 2 questions to you, Lloyd. I've got a question here. How do you start your own blockchain? Do you have to use one that's already established?
You don't, right? But it's a little bit like you can create your own blockchain platform on itself, but you will need a lot of very let's say tech savvy people to help you to bring it up. And then the challenge is not so much there, but it's how do you make sure that it becomes popular? And that's where the challenge is. If you use an existing one, let's say Ethereum, which is the one that has the biggest innovation because it has smart contracts, it's owned by nobody, so everybody loves this one, like I said. You can build your own application, but you're using one that has a lot of millions of users and millions of platform and all this, so you're having a very faster way to start it. So you can create any application you want. You can use Ethereum. You don't necessarily have specific costs to do this. You need to just follow the protocol, and it's anybody can create it, right? I said it's owned by nobody, so it's available to everybody. But if you want to create your own new blockchain, the very fundamental trust, it is very possible, but you will have a problem of having a lot of friends who actually start to make it useful, and people need to replicate it and host a node. So that's where typically you have some of them that are coming up prominently.
Thank you. And I'm just going to take another question because there are two people that have commented on it. What are your thoughts on the adoption of VeChain and its use to enable supply chain execution?
So I don't have universal knowledge of all I remain very business. So VeChain, I have heard the name, but I don't have special competency to give you an opinion on this. The thing I'm saying now is, and I'm on an SAP standpoint, right? I have good understanding worldwide of SAP, what we are doing. It's still everywhere in a very big research mode. And the challenge is, if you really want supply chain to work in this principle, you need to have kind of worldwide adoption. To have worldwide adoption, nobody needs to own the blockchain. If anybody uses it or owns it, so first check this, if it's a private one or a public one. If it's private one, it will maybe become just a niche blockchain. If it's a universal one, open to everybody, so nobody owns it, then if it picks up, you actually know that everybody, someone, a flower shop can just use it without having to pay a fee or anything like that. It's universal. That would be my answer, but I don't have specific competency to give you an answer.
No, but I think that gives some guidance. Thank you, Lloyd. So there are lots of questions coming through, but I am being cognizant of time. So what I'm going to suggest, Lloyd, can we ask you to pop into your speaker room? Just for a few minutes, and the people that have posted questions that I haven't been able to get through, if you can take those to Lloyd in that room, please. If you haven't completed the polls tab about the session, please do so in the right-hand tab. Your feedback is very important to us, as well as it is to the speakers. We are going to take a 30-minute break now. When you come back, you go onto the session tab and join the session. Or choose a session to join after the break. And please don't forget to visit the stands and learn about the solutions of the people that, of the companies. I see Lloyd has just disappeared. Of the companies have got some solutions to share with you, and the prizes and competitions that are being run by Goskor and Chep and Aska and the caricature artist on table 2 of OpenText. Enjoy your break. Please also spend some time networking. There's lots of really good people here, lots of cool people to talk with, share ideas, talk about solutions. So grab a cup of coffee and come back and use the platform for the next half an hour to really just learn, chat, network. We will see you shortly. Thank you so much.